Good morning. Welcome to Talking Balearics with me, Martin Makepeace, in an overcast Ibiza.
Morning from me, Richie Martin, in a similar story, Mark, here in Mallorca.
Well, I went to the UK on Friday, as you know, Rich, and the weather was better in Birmingham than it was in Mallorca, which is quite strange, isn't it?
Oh, the newspapers love a headline, don't they?
Yeah. What, hotter than Mallorca?
Hotter than Mallorca. That all came out last week. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Now, Richie, this is Talking Balearics. What are we talking about today?
I've got, fresh on the back of the ITB German fair, the government has apparently its answers for sustainability, if I can say it. Its answers for sustainability, which surprisingly enough haven't gone down too well with the opposition parties. So we'll talk about that.
I've almost got exclusively property today, Rich, because it's the build up to the season, isn't it? We're now in March. We're almost in the middle of March, and I think panic mode has struck the employers of the island, because basically there's nowhere for anyone to live. So the press is just full of property news every day. Now, I've got several different angles which we'll go through one by one. But first of all, why don't we start with your big news, Rich?
Well, the government, which is the PP party, of course, President Ms. Marga Prohens, they've come out with a sort of 3-point plan to deal with the over-tourism or tourism phobia, as they call it. One is to increase the tourist tax, the eco tax, as we know it. One is to increase the tourist tax on cruise ships that arrive here in Palma and across the Balearics, and also a tax on people arriving in cars that aren't registered here on the islands. That's their 3-point plan as of now. And then to go into that into more detail, the tourist tax, first of all, they've taken it away in January and February. I don't know why they don't take it away in November, December, to be perfectly honest, because it's still as quiet here as those days, as those months as it is January and February. But anyway, and then they've increased it in the high season months, which is June, July, and August. Basically, and depending on the star rating of the hotel you're staying in, will depend on the tax that you pay. I would first of all, I'd like to question why people should pay more if they're staying in a 5-star hotel than someone staying in a 1-star hotel. Not necessarily all the time that it's that person's got a lot of money. And two, what difference does it make in the star rating of the hotel? In my opinion, they've all got the footfall onto the island anyway. They're all doing certain things that might affect the sustainability of the island. So, one, I'm not quite sure why we pay or why they organise it differently from a star rating. I don't know if you know the answer to that, do you?
No, not really, mate. I just think that they think that people staying in 4 or 5-star hotels have more money, so they can afford more money to pay. So I agree with you, Rich. I think it's a strange system. It should be one for all. It's almost a 2 or 3 tier system, isn't it? We hear about these 2-tier systems, and it's creating a divide, isn't it? It's not uniting anything.
No, as I just said, everybody's doing the same thing, really, pretty much. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't matter which hotel you're staying in, you're still going out, you're still, doing other things. So that sounds a bit strange. And also what I just don't get is that children under the age of 16 don't pay any money towards the tourist tax. Once again, they're part of the footfall that comes to the island. Why are they not paying the tax as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think they should pay a reduced rate, Rich. I really do. I don't think you can penalise kids the same as you can penalise adults. I mean, I say penalise, or should we say charge? But I just don't get the eco tax, Rich. I mean, we were both against it at the start, weren't we? Remember back in the day? We're talking 10 years ago now, aren't we? When it first came in. Yeah. We do. I think we both agree. Surprise, surprise. We agree on something, that it's a necessary evil, that most places around the world do it. But I just still think it's a bit befuddled. And what I don't like, Rich, is anytime there's a drama, anytime there's any form of consternation, it's like, let's raise the tourist tax. Let's stop the tourist tax. Rich, you might not know this, but what was it in a 4-star hotel? Was it €4 per night, if I'm not mistaken, in a 4-star hotel, 5-star hotel?
Which I think is now going up to €6.
Wow. So that's going to be €42 per person per week, isn't it? So family of 4, say you've got 2 teenage kids, you're looking at €200 for the week, aren't you? I mean, that's quite a lot of money.
Well, it depends how old your kids are. Don't forget, under 16s don't pay.
Sorry. So. Yeah. I mean, 16 plus. But listen, kids at 16 and 17, you still think they're kids, don't you? So,
Yeah.
say you're a family with two teenage kids of 17 and 18, you're paying £200 a week in a 4-star hotel. Now, we are trying to make the hotels better in the Balearics. I think organically, obviously, I always talk about San Antonio, but San Antonio now has got more 4- and 5-star hotels than it's ever had before. So on one hand, they're trying to improve the hotel sector, and on the other hand, they're trying to penalise the clients that go there. So I think they've got to come up with some straightforward thinking there as well, and they just can't always keep referring back. It's almost like a catch-all or a get-out-of-jail-free card for the politicians, isn't it?
No, I totally agree. And it's a similar story with the cruise ships as well. They're going to pay the high rate in, I think it's slightly different for them. I think I read it was May, June and September, not July and August, because I'm not quite sure if there are as many cruise ships coming in that time. Also, one thing I would question about cruise ships is a couple of things. Number one is some cruise ships start here, in Mallorca in particular. We've got over 540 cruise ships coming this year, so it's quite a lot of people. Some cruise ships actually start here, which means obviously the people that arrive won't really get off because they're literally going to get to the airport and then get on the cruise ship and go.
Yeah.
And then in other cases, when the cruise ship arrives, some don't even get off at all. Some do. There's the truth in that. And I think we talked about this before. I think the cost last year, or what the price per head was, about 35 euros per head that people paid in resort, which I don't think is a bad per head personally, to be honest with you. Work it out over I think there was about 1.8 million people came on cruise ships. I think it works out to be about 60 odd million euros, which can't be sniffed at. But also, I go back to the thing about cruise ships. Once again, I'm all for sustainability and everything else, but there's also the fact how many people this does employ when they come into town. Whether you're a taxi driver, whether you're a coach driver, whether you're somebody that restocks the ships, whether you work at the port or whatever, this all helps. Do you know what I mean? To an economy that is very, very much led by tourism.
Yeah. Of course. I think with the cruise ships is a bit of a hot potato, Rich, isn't it? Because I think it's good business, but I think the modern day cruise ships now, the size of them, they are floating villages or floating cities, should I say, several thousand people. And I think they've got to be controlled. I hate that word because I just think I'm a capitalist by nature, and I think it's a free market. But I think the sustainability, for the environment, I think it has to be controlled. But also, I think that they are bringing money into the islands, and if the demand is there, then we should jump on top of that as well. I noticed that the cruise ship levy has really hit the headlines in the UK as well. So any negativity come your way from it, Rich? Have you had any feedback?
No, not really. I think it's obviously early doors yet. And don't forget, these are all ideas right now. These are ideas that have come from the government. They've got to get it through Parliament. I've already read this morning that the majority of the opposition parties have turned their back on these policies already because they don't like them. Maybe because they don't go far enough. I don't know. I haven't actually read into the main detail of this. But don't forget that the Party Popular are governing right now in a minority. They've fallen out with Vox.
Yeah.
Which was
everyone falls out with Vox, Rich, don't they?
They were the party that basically brought the government together, if that makes sense. They made a pact with Vox to put the government in power. So, I hate minority governments. I hate coalition governments because nothing ever gets done, and this is going to go on and on and on as usual. And what happens is that the problem, it doesn't get solved, which means the islands suffer, and that's, for me, that's not right.
Well, if you think about it, Rich, the Balearic government's in minority, the national government's in minority. I'm surprised anything gets done as well. And just for those back at home, Vox is probably the Spanish version of the Reform Party. Would you say that?
It's a right-wing party.
It's a right-wing party they're disruptors, aren't they, Vox? They like to disrupt things. They like to say they're going to do things, and then they like to go against it. That reminds me of someone. I'm not quite sure who. Disrupting on a daily basis. But, what's so frustrating for us at the sharp end of tourism here, Rich, I know you've got your new concierge company. I've been doing the similar things for years, is that we're in the middle of the fallout there. We get it from the sharp end, from the clients. They don't really know what's happening. We don't really know what's happening. Sometimes I think they make decisions for decision's sake. I just wish they'd come up with a plan and stick to it.
I'm right in saying, Mark, obviously you have villas that you rent. Does a person that rents your villas have to pay a tourist tax?
Yes, they do, Rich. Really good point there. And for instance, I can't remember what it is. I think it's €2 per person per night. But I don't charge it, and I know, foolish me, by the way, because in my villas I don't charge it. I don't agree with it. So what we do on the tourist tax is that we pay a modular. So we pay a set fee per year. So in one of the villas, it can be anything between 700 and €1,000 tax per year for the tourist tax, and then I pay that. I don't pass it on to the clients. That's a personal thing. But I do know villa owners that do pass it on. I probably should do, Rich, so people know about the tourist tax. But it's admin heavy. You've got to go, you've got to collect it, you've got to tell people. I just think, it's just another form of tax for villa owners, really. But it is, again, I'm not a massive fan, and I just think it needs streamlining from top to bottom. From when people arrive, they know how much they're paying, they know where it's going, and it all becomes clear, and we know what it's been spent on. At the moment, it's a bit foggy, to say the least.
So all licensed holiday lets have to either charge their client or do what you do, and then basically offer up your own basically payment for it. Is that correct?
Exactly that, mate. So if you're a licensed villa, and let's face it, there's a lot out there that aren't, and they get away with it as well, which is another grey area. The taxpayers are paying more tax, if you think about it that way, is if you're a licensed villa owner, you have to pay the tourist tax. So basically you will pay a certain amount. To be honest, if I charge the tourist tax, it could be probably a profit centre for me because of all the clients that come in. I mean, I don't think it'd be a lot, a few €100, but again, I don't agree with it, so I don't pass it on to the clients. But I do tell them about it, and I just do say, listen, I don't agree with it, so I don't pass it on to you. But whether they appreciate that, I don't know.
The other tax that the government have brought in is a tax on cars, basically coming from anywhere off the islands, if that makes sense. Cars that are not registered here will be paying a levy of, on average, they say around about €40. So if you're coming, for instance, on a ferry from the mainland or elsewhere, then you'll be paying, if your car isn't licensed here in the Balearics, you'll be paying for your car to arrive here. It's another tax on people arriving. I don't know, whether I agree with it or not, but they're obviously trying to get the number of cars reduced as well. We talked about this last week, didn't we? They're looking at a number in Ibiza, for instance, around about 20,000. I think I seem to remember off the top of my head you said last week.
Yeah, 20,000 non-resident cars on a daily basis. That was the maximum.
This only applies to cars, obviously, that are not registered. So if you're a car owner here and your car is registered here on the island, it doesn't matter. But for instance, if you're a second homeowner, you're driving a car down from the UK into Mallorca or Ibiza or wherever you're going to, and it's not licensed here, then you will be taxed on that car.
Sounds like an administrational nightmare, Rich, that does, doesn't it? Who pays, when they pay, how they pay, where they pay. I don't know.
They're talking about putting an online portal on, Mark, to pay beforehand.
Yeah, well, Formentera have got that, Rich, and it works quite well. And I've had a couple of friends actually over here in Ibiza who haven't paid the levy to go on the island, and then about a year, 18 months later, they've had a fine through the post of several €100, and they're like, what the hell is this? So it kind of works. It's slow, but the wheels always move slowly in Spain anyway. So, in principle, Rich, I haven't got a problem with it. I think, I think that we have to reduce the number of cars on the island. So they need to put a system in place which is transparent, which everyone knows where they stand. Listen, I haven't got a problem if I want to go to a small island somewhere, if it means taking a car and saving €700 by not renting a car and taking my own car. I don't mind paying 30, 40, 50 quid if that's the way it is. However, I just think it's a communication issue, but you could say that about a lot of things. Should we talk about property, Richie?
Yes, mate. Yes.
Well, I was looking at the headlines all week, and as we do on the Talking Balearics podcast, I've scanned the papers every day, and I've got to say, every day it's property this, property that, and there's several strings to this bow this week, Rich. First and foremost, the panic is setting in because what they're saying is that the employers on the island just haven't got enough housing for the employees. Now, I've got 3 words to say to that. No shit, Sherlock. I mean, come on. We've known about this for so many years, and all of a sudden it's kind of been forgotten all winter. The middle of March, everyone's panicking. Now, it came in the press this week. I think it was announced in Mallorca as well that the Melia Hotel Group, which is a big hotel group, which is based in Mallorca, isn't it? It's a family-owned hotel group from Mallorca, but they're all over Spain. They're one of the flagship hotel groups in Spain. They're going to start buying apartments to house their staff, which my kind of answer to that was, why didn't you do this 20 years ago? Because the prices have gone up, which I'll talk about shortly. I mean, it's a no-brainer, really, that you've got to start. I mean, these companies, they literally earn billions of euros per year. Now, if they just bought an apartment block a year of, say, €1 million or 1.5 million, it would solve your housing crisis. And two, it's an investment, not a cost. Now, if you're paying for rentals, that's a cost. If you're buying a house, that's an investment. It's a very clear difference there as well, because as we know, the house prices in the Balearics are just going up and up and up. So it's a no-brainer. And I think this is going to be a blueprint which others will follow over the next several years, because I can't see any other way around it, Rich. I really can't.
No, but once again, as we've talked about before, that will only push prices up again. The truth be known, because they'll become a premium. And also, I'm wondering whether or not it's cost effective. Well, it might be cost effective in the long run, because you obviously will have that on your books as an asset, as you say. But that is an asset that's only going to be used 6 months of the year, obviously, because the other 6 months is going to be vacant. Is it? Well, I imagine it probably is, but I'm just trying to think: is it worth them giving up rooms that they would normally give to guests to their staff for 6 months of the year, and not have to pay for 12 months on a rental, on a mortgage property? Or would it work out? Probably in the long run, it would probably work out cheaper, because it will be an asset, I imagine. But,
yeah, absolutely, Rich. I mean, listen, leave the property to me, mate. I'll leave the radio to you. You leave the property to me, okay? Of course it will be an asset, and of course it will be cost effective. Now, if you think at the moment, for instance, the Inside, which is part of the Melia Group in San Antonio Bay, I think that's got 25% of their rooms allocated to staff. Okay, now don't forget, these rooms are probably €100 per person per night, so 200 person per night, €1,400 a week, peak season. I mean, if you do the sums, you can see quite straightforward that it's very cost effective. As I say, your property prices are going to be going up as well. So I think this is a blueprint, which I can't believe they didn't do it years ago. You've got massive employers on the island, like the Alonso Marie Group, the Matutis Group, the Melia Group, the O Beach Group, the Mambo Group. You've got all these big groups with high net worth companies and earning millions of euros. I think it's the only way forward that they're going to have to start buying properties. A bit like the old days, Rich. Now, here's a little bit of a story. My grandparents will work for Cadbury's in the UK. And my granddad was an engine stoker. There you go. He used to stoke the engine at Cadbury's. And Cadbury's built a whole town called Bourneville. And they built a whole town, and that was there to house their staff. It's as simple as that. And I think we're going back in time, because that's the only way you're going to find accommodation for staff. So there. Talking about...
Can I just make a point on that, though?
Of course you can.
Yeah, because obviously we've been talking about a tax on foreign buyers and everything else, people that aren't, but surely this is a case of businesses becoming, if you want, like foreign buyers, because they're buying up properties in order to house their own staff, which then will force the prices to go up again. And it's just a never-ending circle. So what difference is a foreign buyer to a company buying up property to house their staff?
And also, if you think the staff people will stop the foreign buyers buying, which means it will stop tourists. I mean, it's a real conundrum here as well. But it's catch-22, Rich. You've got these Balearic Islands. We say before, what an amazing place we live in. We're so lucky. People want to live here. People want to come here. But there's not enough houses for staff. There's not enough tourist beds in the summer. In the winter, we know it goes quiet. So how do you solve it? I really believe the government have to take a lead here as well. I'm not massively into government stepping in and being authoritarian about things, but I think it's the only way, because yourself, the Balearics, it's dog eat dog over here, isn't it? It really is. I mean, anyone who's tried to start up a business in the Balearics or who's run a successful business in the Balearics will tell you there's no help for anyone apart from yourself. So it really is dog eat dog. So, but I do think the government have to step in and try and solve the problem, especially about the key workers. We say it every week, don't we? I mean, I'm repeating myself again, but the nurses, the teachers, the firemen, the policemen, when you can't get enough staff in to teach your children or look after your family in the health service, then there's a serious problem there. So I do think it needs some It needs some blue sky thinking. It needs some very clear heads, and we need to come up with a solution which is tax efficient but doesn't affect the tourist again. But there you go. If we could do that, mate, maybe we'll be the next Elon Musk, wouldn't we? And we wouldn't want that, would we? Now,
No, I don't want to be him.
No. Well, have you got a chainsaw?
Well, I just say about Elon Musk, actually, totally different. I don't follow him on Twitter, what I still call it Twitter, on X. Don't follow him, but he's on my feed morning, noon, and night. Yeah, I don't want him on my feed. Do you know what I mean? So get rid, mate. I don't listen to it. I don't like your politics. Don't listen to what you say. But get off my feed.
A nice little rant there, Rich. I'm not sure what that's got to do with Balearics, but get off my feed, Elon Musk. Yeah, listen. Should we have a rant? Should we have a rant corner next week? We can have just a rant for 30 seconds. Talking of property prices, very interesting. I've been. Luckily, we've had I work in the property market. We've had a couple of sales recently, so I've been very involved in the market over the last.
You've been going away a lot.
Well, yeah, of course, spending the ill-gotten gains. But it was very interesting. I was checking all the websites and looking through the property market. I like to think I'm a bit of a property specialist in Ibiza. And now the cheapest house is a small flat in Figueretas on any website is 190,000. Yeah, 190,000 euros for the cheapest possible accommodation in Ibiza, which I just think is incredible. Prices are running about 5,000 euros a square metre. The national average is about 2 and a bit thousand. So we're double the price of anywhere else, Rich. It's incredible, really.
What do you get for your 190,000?
A very small, dingy little studio apartment, mate. That's what you get. But hey, You're on the ladder, aren't you? And I was also going through and I saw that again, one of the most expensive apartments to rent was 25,000 euros a month in Marina Botafoc, which is overlooking Ibiza town. And there was a little cheeky villa there, mate, which I thought you might be interested because now you're a big time Charlie.
Yeah.
It wasn't particularly fantastic, actually. It was just a 4-bedroom villa, San Jose, just up the road from where I live. And that was 90,000 euros per month. So very, very strange times indeed, Richie. Very strange times.
So I'm quite shocked this week, Mark, that we have got apparently no news from our sponsors, but we have got some news from our sponsors' rivals.
Well, I think it's only right because obviously we talk about the Universe Club, which is opening very soon in June. If they want to sponsor us, they know where we are. But across the road, we've got Amnesia. Sorry, what was it? I've forgotten. What was its name again, Rich? Boom! You can have that one.
That's terrible.
Terrible, isn't it?
Terrible.
Amnesia, which is probably the home of Balearic House, Balearic music. And I think they're panicking because they're directly opposite the brand new Super Club and they've lost a few names to that so-called Super Club. Oh, sorry, Universe is a hyper club. Let's get it right. It's not a Super Club now. It's a hyper club. And they've announced a couple of names this week. And Pyramid, which is a real grungy underground Spanish techno house music type thing. Do I know what I'm talking about? Not really.
You sound like a real DJ there, Mark.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but it's very popular. I think it's popular with the purists, and also interestingly, Ben Hemsley, which is a DJ that's been in Ibiza Rocks for the last few years. He's now got a night in Amnesia as well, so I think he will appeal to the British market. So very interesting, mate, because it's kind of a fight back, but I'm not sure it is. I think Amnesia is a super club, but it looks like it's going a bit niche to me. So there will be bloodletting this year because, as we said before, all the clubs hate each other and they're trying to get one-upmanship on each other. It's going to be very interesting because there will be casualties, Richie. There will be casualties.
And will they be opening before the Universe opens or do we know?
Interesting on the clubs, it used to open at the end of May, but now most of the clubs are now opening at the end of April because they tie it into the IMS, which is a big international music summit over here, big festival at the end of April, which again used to be the end of May, but now is the end of April. So the club scene over the last 10, 12 years is now a month longer than it used to be. So, we used to say we had a short season. The clubbing season now starts at the end of April and finishes at the start of October, where it used to start the end of May and finish at the middle of September. So we've probably got 4 to 6 weeks more in the clubbing scene, which it can only be a good thing.
Yeah, agree. All right, well, no news from Universe, so that'll be it then for today's show.
I'm sure there's plenty of news from Universe, but we can't talk about them every week, can we?
Exactly.
Unless they want to give us a nice pot full of money for advertising, of course.
Yes,
then we'll speak to them very clearly.
Definitely.
That's it, Richie. I'm away again this weekend.
Wow, what you do surprise me.
Yeah, well, I was in Derby versus Blackburn last weekend, wasn't I? For a little, I got a little invite. And
Nice little win.
Yeah, and I went to an evening with Charlie George, and he was talking about your team very much so. I didn't realise how much he disliked the other team from North London, by the way.
Oh, yeah. He doesn't like them.
Absolutely hates them. But this weekend, I've got a little cheeky invite to the Wales versus England Six Nations.
Ooh, nice.
So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. So I've got a little cheeky invite. So I'll be talking about that next week, obviously.
Not your friend Jamie, is it, by any chance?
It is actually. I'm staying with him because he's local, but it's somebody else. It's the chief executive of one of the clubs, but I don't want to talk about it too much because it just makes me sound like a bit of a you know what. So anyway, I'm looking forward to that, Rich. So lots to talk about next week, and look forward to talking to you then, Rich.
All right, take care, Mark. See you soon.
Speak to you soon, mate. Bye now.
Bye.
Make me dance.